So it's 7:02. Stephanie, if you do roll call, please.
Commissioner Dillard?
Oh, and I guess it's still muted.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Perfect, thanks for catching that. Okay, Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Kichi,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner Tassinari,
Here.
and Commissioner Johnson.
Here again.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'll ask Vice Chair to read the Native American Land Acknowledgement, please.
We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forest removal that dispossess indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Next, we'll move on to public comments of items not on the agenda. Anyone in the room, if you'd like to speak? Okay. Next, we will go to approval of meeting minutes from April 4th. And is there a
Second.
first
I move.
and then a second? Was Cliff?
Seconded.
Thank you. Stephanie?
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from April 4th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Next, we will go to agenda item number 5, which is follow-up and debrief from the TRC presentation to City Council. First, I will open up to public comment in the room. If there's anyone that'd like to address this agenda item, please come to the microphone. If not, we'll turn it over to anyone online that would like to comment on this agenda item. Okay, I will open it up to commissioners, if there's anything that anyone would like to talk about. If you were not in attendance, I believe it went pretty well, and we just have some work to do moving forward. Any other comments on this? Okay, I will move on. I will move on to agenda item number 6, which is facilitators' final report update. Thank you, Stephanie, for printing it out for us. I will, I guess, turn it over to our facilitators. If there's any, were you planning on saying anything about this? V or Annie or anyone else online? I don't think there's anyone else online.
I don't think we would. I mean, I don't think we have been planning to, but maybe V wants to say something. What I'd like to say is, I think there's a lot in there. I think you would want to look at the recommendations. We put in the appendix, we made it a real effort to put in everything that had been given to you and more, so that you walked away with that, right? That you have that as a resource, like what did they say in October? You've got that. So that was the intent, not only to report back to the city, but to provide a document that was a really important resource for you all and for anybody in the future. So our recommendation would be that it is put with a link on your website, right? So
you.
anyway, anything else you want to say? I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at it.
Nope. We just got this week, and I'm sure no one's had a chance to go through all of this.
Sure. Okie doke. Well, we're glad to be available for you with what questions you have. I'll speak for myself. And, right, we hope that it's a useful resource.
Thank you.
And Annie, I was just going to say, the PDF that you sent, I think, is like a Xerox copy. So some of the pages, like 98, 99,
Yeah. I
103.
Yeah, I just
102,
noticed all-
like, they're not really, visually, you can't really make anything out of them because it's, for whatever reason, they're just not.
So I haven't seen it. I just saw it as the online doc that we were working on. Oh,
So like, and there's several.
great. Okay, good to
And
know. Not
in just a second, we'll turn it over to V.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, my apologies for PDF not being readable on this format. We'll definitely correct that. Thanks for pointing that out. I just wanted to say it really has been an honor to work with you all these past several months. And I just wanted to reiterate what Annie said, you know, in terms of moving forward, we hope that this is a document that is helpful. We did try and put all the information in one place so that it is a repository as well, so that all of the information that you've had, the trainings, the PowerPoints, all that information is in one document for quick reference. That was our intent in the appendices, as well as the recommendations. That's the only thing I wanted to add to that. And of course, happy to answer any questions that you may have now or in the future at any time. You know, we are all in community together. So thank you for your service. Deep, deep gratitude for the service that you all are doing and the time that we've had together. So thank you.
Thank you, V. Do we have anything we want to say about this? I will suggest that we put it on a future agenda if we want to discuss it further.
Do we have an electronic copy of it?
Yes. I believe, Stephanie, you just sent it electronically today to everyone?
Would have been sent yesterday to
Oh, yeah.
everyone.
That was
That's
the
what I saw.
late, that was the late attachment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's when I saw it. Okay, if there's no other further discussion, I will move on to agenda item number 7, which is TRC budget updates and requests for additional funds. If there's anyone online or in the room that would like to discuss this before we get started on this discussion, please let me know. Raise your hand or come to the front.
One thing that I have and can provide to you is the job description for some of the tasks that we originally, as we put in our contract, thought would be helpful as an assistant for you guys, so I can provide that.
Thank
You don't
you.
have that tonight.
Thank you. Okay. TRC budget update and requests for additional funds. I think this is a discussion we were going to really dive into last month, or yes, the last meeting, but we weren't able to, so.
And Chair, can I just jump in real quick
Oh,
on
yes.
at least the budget update aspect? So I passed out a email. Actually, it was a response that I was given to a journalist, reporter with the Daily Iowan. I don't know if it was intended to be published or it was part of a class project, or I'm not real sure. But essentially, it asked for what had been spent to date. So there is still some closeout work that needs to be done with a couple of the facilitation teams. And I've been advising them that the closeout will officially happen when the final report is sent to council. And so this is the last step, is to have some deliberation with the commission and essentially accepting the report with any type of revisions to be happening at that level, and then the final report would be sent to the council. And at that time, contractually speaking, the contract will be complete. So, so there are still some outstanding invoices that we're working through, but you at least have what has been spent up to date, as well as the discretionary funds that the commission has been responsible for. If you recall, the $10,000 per phase is also shown on the backside of the email. So if you can have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Interesting, okay. Does anyone have any immediate thoughts about the request for additional funds that we'd like to move forward at City Council or with City Council the next time we meet with them.
I just had a question for Redmond. So if I add up all these numbers, we've spent to date $320,000 roughly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's so technically there's still $80,000 that we could have been spent.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
$80,000 that's only tied to the contracts, or $80,000 that we could use?
To the contracts.
Okay.
So Chair, could you clarify what you're looking for in your question?
Yes, good question. So actually, I guess for this agenda item, it would be best to really jump into the next steps to really dive into what our plans are. But that's really what I was looking for. So thanks for that question. Did you have something, though?
So if you can imagine, we're planning on taking a trip. We're going to take a trip to Florida. Well, maybe not Florida, right? So maybe we're going to take a trip to Montana. We know that the way we're going to get there is going to get there via vehicle, right? So we want to make sure we have the right vehicle. We know that a two-seater is not going to work for all of us to get down there. So we probably need something like a minivan, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to figure out what type of vehicle we need that's going to fit us all comfortably, get all of our luggage, and then we're going to be able to take the trip, right? What we really haven't done is we haven't planned what we're going to do on the trip. We've planned the vehicle that we're going to get there, but not the trip. So, as an example, if you want to change something around affordable housing, you have to really understand how affordable housing works. I didn't really know how it worked, so what I did is I took a trip to Nashville to where they had a conference for people like me that are not smart when it comes to housing, to learn about how housing works. And a couple of things that I learned, right? And we can talk about what I learned later, but I learned that. Once I was able to better understand the system, I knew the type of questions I needed to ask. I knew the type of information I needed to have, and I knew the type of people I needed to talk to. Once you then get that information, then you can make decisions about policies, procedures, right? That's what we have to do, in my opinion. We have spent a great deal of time appropriately on the vehicle. Now we have to get and spend time on the actual situations of the things that we talked about, and we picked 4 of them, right? We have to get deep into understanding those 4 and how they actually work and how they operate. As an example, if we found out that the police, that all the money that they collected for traffic tickets, that they were using, or they were giving the money and the money was being used by City Council, right, to take lavish trips to Tiffin, Iowa, as an example, then if we wanted to do something about it, we know that we would have to figure out how do we do around the policy around how that money comes in and what we want to do with it. If we found out that the money is being used to be able to support more mental health services for the community, then maybe we don't want to do something around that policy to disrupt that because it may be used in its right way. So I think that, again, when we talk about the money we need the money to better understand the how systems operate, specifically the 4 that we chose, by bringing in people who have that type of expertise. And then we need to develop the tools that we used in the first 9 months with the information that we got from the understanding the systems to then run through the process so that we can then identify what the policies that we want to change. Now, there's a difference between systemic racism and racism that is just overt. So my granddad had to, when he went to the restroom, he had to go to colored only. Now, more than likely, a white person, if they were to walk into the colored only bathroom or they were to drink from the colored only fountain, more than likely they're not going to be penalized. But if my granddad were to do the opposite, he more than likely was going to be penalized, right? You can understand, so if that's a policy around that, the city has a policy that you have to be 6 foot tall, in essence, to drink from water fountains, that's something we could easily identify. We could show, again, where the impact is, and we could address it. That's not how systematic racism works. It is in the policy. It's not in the action. It's actually in the results. So when you take a look at a policy, in most cases, that policy will not show on its surface that it is discriminatory, and you've experienced that. If the police stop more people of color than they stop others, then you have to ask why. What is it about the results that tells you that there's a problem with the policy in the way the policy, in essence, is written? But on the surface, the policy is fine. There are 4 ways that you attack, in my opinion, that you attack things regarding to systems. There are 4 ways that their systems are used against us. Your time, your talent, your treasure, and the last one would be your temperature. Temperature is least known, so I'll explain that one. If I can just fatigue you to quit, that's all I need to do, just to get you to quit. So if I can get you to run through a process in such a way that you just give up, then the policy is what the policy is, and you just give up, right? The others are just as important, but most of them hit to the point of treasure. Because with treasure, you can buy time, you can buy talent, and you can even buy temperature, right? Because it's not so much you, it's someone else who has an eagerness for it. So that's what I think that we're really asking the money for, is to be able to truly understand systems, the 4 systems that we chose, to do testing around involvement. And I believe that the involvement that we're doing, that I do not believe the city council gets. But I believe what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, city council, stop trying to solve our problems. Be a city council to help us solve our own problems. Don't just put the burden on us, give us the resources so we'll solve the problems ourselves. Because we have more control over, we have more passion on it. I think what the city historically has done is said, you tell us what your problems, that's to me what listening posts are, and then we will come and figure out what we can do in essence to resolve it. And here's the last thing I would say. If there's a pothole in the street and you know it's there, you can pretty much avoid it. If someone tells you it's there, then you can pretty much avoid it as well. But it doesn't stop the pothole from being there. So systemic racism is about really that pothole. You got to fill it. If you don't fill it, then everyone has to do workarounds in that sense to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of the things that we're trying to do. And historically, that's what we do, is we do workarounds. We use individuals to help us muscle through getting certain things done. We ignore it because we already know it is there, and then we go different routes to be able to avoid those potholes. That's what we have to help the city council better understand as far as what their role is. And from their questioning, or sometimes their lack of questioning, especially at the last meeting, city council meeting, I'm clear, I am confident that they would probably welcome more information about systemic racism and how it really works versus just the catchphrase of what the word is. Mm-hmm. That's where I think the $250,000 is. They just helped us create the vehicle. They just made sure that we all going to have a minivan, that we're going to have enough money for the gas tank, and we're going to get to where we want to go. But what we do while we get there, we have no clue. We have not really figured any of that out, and that's where we need the money to figure out what the solutions to helping people solve their own problems.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. That makes a lot of sense. Does anyone else have any other thoughts? We can continue this discussion in figuring out the next steps, if everyone's okay with that. Okay, well, I'll move on to agenda item number 8, and then just open it up once again for public comment, either online or in the room.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm very sorry, I didn't get you very well. I have some questions I want to raise on the budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
sorry.
very sorry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can everybody just remember to speak to the microphone, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I appreciate what Commissioner Chadas reminded us about the vehicle, the big vehicle we are going to get into. But I also want us to talk about who is going to be in the vehicle. Who is going to be and who is not going to be. And I think that is really a big task for us today. And I look at a report that we had earlier, and we have used this report for a long time, and we see like 5 major areas that, or groups, areas that the commission proposed. I was not in the commission at that time. So I'll just follow that. And I think our planning should go around what the commission had proposed earlier in terms of
The budget?
the budget, yes.
Okay.
What will it need to complete those? What are those groups going to cost to complete the whatever? What's the timeline going to be? How many events are we going to have, public presentations and hearing? I think these are the things that we really need to talk on this agenda. That's the idea I had when I was coming here. Yeah. So we.
So that's what I was actually moving on to the next agenda item, so we can start talking about exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Do you have any number questions for the budget right now? Or can we move on just so we're under the right agenda item, and then I'll let you.
I usually have a problem when I put in a big number when I don't know the things that are going into that number.
Okay.
That's something I just find very difficult for me.
Okay, so let me formally move on to the next agenda
Yes.
item, and then you can continue. So if there's anyone in the room or online that would like to speak to agenda item number 8, which is next steps for phases 3 and 4, please move to the microphone or raise your hand. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Quiche. I just have to do those formal things. So if you want to continue what you were saying.
Yes, yeah. Looks like the agenda was, but it doesn't matter anyway. Now that I have the opportunity to talk about this. So these are the things that, as we go by the earlier plans, we had public presentations that we plan to have. And we should talk about how many public events are we thinking of having. What is that going to cost? We also have education work group. They are going to collect some information and data from the community, from different people, different institutions. Social justice group is also going to work on some things that are not completed yet. In terms of data, if possible, issues like the ones Commissioner Chad has raised, about how money is being spent, budgets and other things. That is additional information we will still want to look into, to beef up what we already got from the first phase. On housing, we also need to talk about the data, the facts. We can't forget those 3 mandates. Anytime we are working on something, we have to remember there are those 3 mandates. We can't talk about the solutions and other things without producing facts that pertain to our city. Iowa City, not to any other city somewhere else. And then on the issues of small business, which is, I think, issues of economic development. These are areas that will require us or somebody in the staff or in the city to help us with this. So this is where I think we need to concentrate on. And then we talk about how many of those events, in terms of hearings, will we need, and how much that's going to cost. Because if we don't do that, then we might find ourselves putting $250,000 on small business work groups, and we won't have any basis for doing that. And I think that's something we have to be careful about. So that's what I'm asking the commission to think about.
Thank you, Commissioner Quiche. I'd like to go back to what Commissioner Simmons was saying about formulating what our goal is. What are we trying to do? Because we have you used the minivan example, but right now we don't have an end goal. What do we want to, at the end of this year, December 31st, 2024, is when we're supposed to be completely done. So I think to answer your questions, Commissioner Quiche, we need to understand what our end goal is. I think we started that conversation the last time we got together, but we really need to solidify that so we can decide what those events are, what experts we're going to bring, what topics we're going to really focus on. So I'm hoping, that's what I was hoping for this conversation would be, since we can only be together in the room right now, all talking about it.
The comment I'd like to make is I'd like for the end goal to be to end for us as relates to our report to be in October.
Yes.
And the reason why I like it to be in October is November gets into election time, and then no one will hear us because all trees are falling at that time.
Yes.
So my thought is that if we present it in October as far as what our plan is, our master recommendations are, then they will be able to, they'll listen to that, and then we can continue to do other things. I do believe that we can have a public session, and I think we should, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 after that. But I do believe from the city council perspective that it should be October, before the elections.
And you're saying the report, just the report of our recommendations?
So I think that when I kind of take a look at it, is that there's a report to the city council, and then in essence, there's a report to the community. And I believe that the report to the city council should happen in October, though the event that I like is the event for Sakawa's Truth Giving. I like that event, and expanding that event to be the event for the community. But that's in November, and it'll happen in November after the elections, but you can get the people galvanized around that.
So if we're thinking about it in that way, we're trying to get, let's say, the first meeting in October, so we're not too close to the elections. That gives us how many months? We're already in May, so June, July, August, September. We have 4 months to do whatever we want to do with whatever events, private or public, to really do that work. And then after October, those last few months, it's really us just presenting things. We shouldn't be doing work per se. Is that what I'm kind of hearing you say?
Yes, I think that we have 1 month per topic area that we plan aggressively to have people come and visit us and talk about the topic so that we have a fuller understanding of that given area. And we get our thoughts around that given area, and we can start writing and putting our thoughts down as far as what we think things should be, and gathering information for that month. So if we're going to do housing, then let's bring in several people to come in and talk to us from a variety of different perspectives around housing. You know, maybe Watts Groups comes in. We have one group that does affordable housing, a nonprofit that will come in. And there are other folks, but to educate ourselves on the system and how the system works. And then we engage privately, gathering truth-telling with people that are impacted by housing. But you focus on putting that master plan, so that's everything, let's say, for June. And that's what you do in June.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of June, you should have enough information about that specific topic to then figure out what recommendations that we want. We don't make them at that time, but we can now have the ability to talk about them and be able to move forward. And then we go on to the next one, whatever the next one is.
I like what you're saying. Let me talk into the mic. I like what you're saying. I'm just a little concerned about time because we're already all fatigued, and just doing 1 month seems to be not fair per topic. And if one of our recommendations that we've collectively agreed on is that we want to recommend that this commission lives on in whatever way, maybe we choose one more topic and really focus on that one. Maybe we still invite experts to talk on the different topics, but we're really diving into from recommendations from one other. So we can use those 4 months to give its due diligence. And that's just a thought. I'm just worried about time and how we're going to be able to pull it off month to month doing that, unless we're overlapping over all of the months and gathering like the private truths behind the scenes. And we're just focusing publicly with the different topics.
I mean, I'll concur with that. I think that time also worries me, how much time we have. But the other thing that worries me a little bit is that if I want to know about social justice, affordable housing, economic development, education, I can sit down and do a number of different searches, and I can find review articles that tell me about these topics at the 30,000-foot level. And I can read about them. I can have an expert talk to me about them, right? But what we're trying to do here is so Iowa City-centric. That's the part where I get worried about the time and about the specificity. If we're going to be providing recommendations either to the city council or to the community, I don't know how we get that specificity with domain experts who are going to come in and talk to us for the most part at the 30,000-foot level. They don't know Iowa City specifics. They don't know, like what Chad was saying, where does the money go from here to there? Where are the potholes in Iowa City? They can tell us, we've looked at all the cities, major cities that have greater than, 100,000 people in them, and typically in those cities, these are the kinds of things we find. But how do we get to Iowa, to something that the public's going to want to hear, that's going to convince the city council, and do it in the amount of time that we have? And when I think about it that way, then I'm like, yeah, I don't know how we could possibly do 4. 2 would be like the most I would think we could do. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I think my thoughts are, is right, there's research that we can do on our own to gather information, but there's also research that we can gain in having people come and speak with us. I think the public presentation says, this is what people are telling us the truth is. Here's where we see the problem is. Here's where we see the policy that we believe that needs to be approached to address that problem, or a policy needs to be created. And then here's what we think a possibility of solutions would be. But none of that is done now. All of that is going to be done for the public, is going to be done in November. For the council, we need someone to write stuff up. That's where I think that there's going to be a lot of time of putting that stuff together in a format that makes sense. So that's the other reason why we want the money, so that we can hire people to do some things for us. They can then help us formulate and do additional research, but they can help make sure that what we say as our wording is what it is. So that's kind of what my thinking is. I don't know, well, I'll stop right there.
So I know, at least for affordable housing, there is a housing commission or committee in Iowa City that's been working on it for, I want to say, at least a decade, if not more, that could come present to us. Tell me your thoughts.
I think you're absolutely right, that there are people who are here that have passion, that can teach us things.
Okay.
But I also believe that there are people that specifically, when it comes to people of color, that better help us understand the barriers that exist and how they, in essence, get around the barriers.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination. But I do think we have the talent here to be able to come, and if we ask them and we tell them specifically what we're looking for, right? I asked someone a question in the city council. I just said, how does, if someone wants to learn how to do development, okay, I want to develop housing, where do I go to do that? Now, I got an MBA, but they didn't teach me that in my MBA. So where do I go to learn how to get into that skill set? The person I asked, again, very talented, smart individual, he doesn't know. He makes decisions. So these are the type of things that it's a combination. It's not that the knowledge isn't out there. It's how do we gather it in such a way that we can then make it more accessible? And then the question would be, for an example, if there are people that will have more of an interest of what we have. And what I found out, this is what I found, the quick thing I found out, it's not really about housing. There used to be a time that you would do affordable housing, you make cheap houses. The laws and the way it's set, you cannot make cheap housing anymore. So what the person said is the cost of the house is the cost of the house. The cost of the hotel is the cost of the hotel. It is what it is. What you're looking for is you're looking for affordable financing. You're looking for equity versus having to go to the banks to be able to get money at 10%. You're looking for someone who's willing, to put in a couple of $1 million so that you can develop something, where you have land and you can develop it. we don't have access to those individuals. We rarely, and we sometimes we eat lunch next to them and we walk next to them. But there's some people that have that type of revenue and money, and what they'll tell us is that they have interest in making money, but they have interest in making money with people who have proven that they can make money. So that means someone like me, right, with my MBA, still would not qualify for some of those things. So when we start thinking about solutions, we're really starting to think about how do we get people, that we can get, Commissioner Johnson to take his concept of what he has and continue to grow and expand his concept. What is it that he needs from an equity perspective, right? And then how do we do that? The other thing I'll just say is, if you take a look at Coralville and their development over the past 20 years, and you take a look at Iowa City and even North Liberty and their development, it's totally different. They have a totally different strategy. They do things totally different. They choose to take a lot more risk, and they do. They own hotels. You know what I'm saying? That hotel that has a name on it, the High Regency, Coralville owns that. That's their hotel. And they get High Regency, it used to be the Marriott, to manage it for them, right? So it's things of that nature, which is how they leverage and use their equity to make things possible. Well, how is it that we want Iowa City to use its equity to make things possible, different than the way they currently do now?
Do you have ideas, Commissioner Simmons, of people to bring in? Like we could bring in next month for housing?
Yeah, what my thinking would be is that I send you a list of individuals, and then we ask some of them. We tell them what our project is, what we're trying to do, and we ask if they would come and they would speak to us. But these are going to be people that, they will be 50,000 feet. But these are going to be very busy people. So we want to be very targeted. But we'd have at our next meeting, our meeting in June, we would have it so that they would come in and they would talk to us about that. We'd have several people come and do that. We'd also have, things around projects that we say, how do we get the community involved in things around housing? So it's not just us listening to them, but it's how do we get, test things out to get the community involved to do stuff of that nature, right? Dream City, I think, is doing wonderful. But I'm experiencing some of the challenges that they're having because this is very new to them from that perspective. So I think that if we set that up, it's a lot of work on the back end, but you set it up for the meeting to happen, then I think you can get enough information, and you give people enough information in advance to do research, to study. So Lewis has the information he needs or shares the information he has with others, then I think those things could be of great value. But I think that's really with everything that we do, even when it's social justice, even when it's education. We cannot solve every educational problem that exists, but we can pick one and say, or we can listen to the people, really identify what the challenges they're having, and we may say we want to address the issue around parents. And parents having to choose between work and things around their children's education. And what are some of the drivers that makes it difficult for them to be able to manage that? Whatever it is, we do the exact same thing. We gather information, we have people come and talk to us, we take a look, and then from there, we do truth telling, but then from there, then we come up with what we think, again, what the focus should be.
And this is a public event. We're inviting the entire community to come learn with us, right?
I think there's some events you want to invite the entire community to learn.
Specifically what you were just talking about is what I'm asking.
So I think some events, so for example, I think that there are events that people could come here and they can teach us at our meeting. They can come and do that. I also believe that there are some events that we can put on in the community that specifically try to address the issue that we know that people are having and better help them understand why that's a problem. So if you want to talk about education, you need educational experts that can really give you a sense of how the state works, how the school districts work, and those type of things. But, so some of them are here, which means they're recorded, and some of them are public sessions that can be recorded or not. They don't have to be. At the end of that information of whatever we gather and a story that we want to tell, we use that for our truth telling. We make that part, let's say, an hour. 15 minutes really describing what we've learned the problem is, 15 minutes of getting truth telling from people that are telling us kind of what the situation is, going through our process, and maybe 15 minutes of here's the solutions that we think that in essence can help us get closer to the community solving the problem.
But I do think that to pull something off like that, right, we need to have the dedicated staff person, right? We're not going to be able to coordinate bringing all these people in a way, because you may know a number of people, other people may know people. We say we want them to come in on this day, half of them can't make it, right? And there's all these logistical issues and multiple phone calls and back and forth and all the rest. And I know Chastity's not going to do it, and I know the rest of us aren't going to do it. So that's got to be kind of the first thing, the hurdle we need to jump through if we're going to pull any of that off.
Thus, you then understand why we need the $250,000. Because if we don't have the money, then we don't, again, it's about time, talent, and treasure. What we're saying is that even if we don't have the time, that's what we're saying.
Right.
We have the passion for it, right? So temperature is there. We don't have the time. So what we're saying is
Find
that we need the
somebody.
treasure to get the talent.
You pay for somebody who can do it.
It's the same with the report. We're going to have a lot of thoughts about the report. Someone's going to need to write the report for us. That's why we need the $250. So that's what I'm saying. I agree with you.
Can I interrupt just to ask a question about personnel? To Stephanie and Redmond, how, if we were to get the 250, the next meeting we meet with City Council, would we have to do an RFP to hire a part-time person to help us with this for the next 4 to 6 months? How soon could we get someone?
Yeah, I think an RFP is probably, would we have to advertise? Is
So you
that
have to
probably-
advertise.
I think that's what you're asking, right?
So that's a 3-month or 2-month process before we could get someone.
Well, this is a hypothetical, so I'm assuming that this is a city position.
Does it have to be, does city do temporary?
City does temporary.
If it's temporary, is that different than a city position?
No.
Okay. So I think we need to find a way to bypass that if we're
So
going.
Chair,
I'm just asking
no,
questions.
you ask a brilliant question. I don't believe it's a city position.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's what we should do, is that we should try to hire a city person to do this.
Okay.
But I do think that we ultimately need to hire someone to do this, like we hire consultants. We do need to hire someone to specifically, on specific projects that we want, and hold them accountable to it. But they're accountable to us.
I hear you. I'm just, do you have more thoughts on how we can do that without having to go through the city process that was just
What's the city process?
described?
Well, I'm again, I'm trying to catch up here. This is all kind of hypothetical, right? So,
Right.
Well, let's not get hypothetical. Let's get really, let's get something that's realer. So what we're ultimately saying is that we've had consultants. The consultants did the work on us creating the vehicle of how we wanted to be able to communicate and work with the community and work with the city, whether it's the city staff or work with the city council. We have recommendations that we're supposed to come up with. We ultimately need someone to be able to, for example, write those recommendations down for us. What is the best way that we can be able to do that in the quickest fashion?
probably some type of contractual.
If we do it based on it being contractual, is it that we have to bid it out in a certain way in order for it to follow certain guidelines?
That's what we had to do before.
And when we did that before, how long did it normally take?
That took a while.
When you say a while, what are you saying?
Well, I wasn't. It was even before I started here. I
feel like it was
But there
2
was an
months.
RFP process, and I think the first time it wasn't accepted by council, and so there had to be some negotiating and reworking, and then it was resubmitted, and that was ultimately approved. So
So I think this is great, because I think that what we've identified in our process of what we're going through, which is, again, something I'm going to talk to the city council about, is a weakness between the way of how we as a commission want to operate, the rules of the city employees, and the rules of the city council. So in essence, what Redmond is telling us is that if we are to follow the rules the way the rules are written, that we probably won't get a consultant for, let's just say, 3 months.
Excuse me, Chair. Mr. Redman, does the city in the commissions or in the departments have some capacity that we can tap on to help us with some of this?
I think so, and I also want to say we did bring on a videographer pretty quickly, right? So it depends on what kind of money we're talking about. So if we're working within the city manager's discretion, there might be a solution that could be worked out. Again, this is very hypothetical, right? So I don't know exactly. I'm just saying what we've done in the past. So we did do some things. There are some capacity levels at the department level that we could utilize. It really kind of depends on the scope of the work that Commissioner Simmons is talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we will have to, as the commission, we are the ones who know where it itches on us and in the community. So we will get together and define the parameters, especially on housing. And that requires that we listen to the people first and probably speculate on some of the areas that we want to get into. And by listening to people in the Housing Commission and the other places. And probably, if other things don't work, that is the way we get some data very quickly from them. And if they can be commissioned, or maybe that's not the right word, they can be directed to work on specific areas on housing that we are interested in, that they can generate information to us. Once they do that, we will have something written by them, or we jointly work on that. And I want to use that also to address the proposal by Commissioner Chad on doing these two events together. To me, I think that's very cumbersome, going to be very difficult. We are like going to bring consultants to help us on that day, and we don't even post a problem to them. We want them to listen to the problem on that day in the public meeting and solve it for us there. There would be in 50 minutes, that wouldn't be the case. Yet we are going to pay them consultancy fee, which is very high. So we need to probably define our problem, know how the problem looks like from our community. Then we tell, these are the problem areas. How can we develop this type of housing for this kind of people? What is it going to cost? What type of projects? We listen to the community based on the data that we have on the ground. And then we approach the consultants and tell them, this is the problem we are having. Can you solve it for us? Help us solve this for the community. That's what I was thinking. So I would propose something that's different from Commissioner Chad regarding the approach, that we work with the housing authority or any other area we pick on. Get some facts very quickly, get one hearing from the community very quickly. We hear from them, and we also discuss those facts as us. Then we define the problem, we write it in a report. Before we present the final recommendations to anybody, to the city council, we can bring a consultant and ask those questions if the budget allows. But we can allocate money for that consultant in advance, that we will need a consultant to work with us in this area.
So clearly, Commissioner Amos and I we're not on the same page, and I acknowledge that, and I understand that. This is the time, Stephanie, you remember I sent you this thing about Snoopy and Lucy, and if you remember, Lucy would tell Snoopy, hey, I'm going to hold this football for you, I want you to kick it.
Charlie Brown.
And Snoopy would say, hey, I tried to do it last time and you pulled it away. Well, I'm not going to do it this time. You should go ahead and do this. No, 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 because this is what you did last time. We've already seen in 9 months the experience of the operation between working with the city council, the city, and the commission. You've already seen that. I would just simply say this, and Commissioner Amos, I would just have you consider this. The issue was about the money, the $250,000. You wanted to make more detailed about how the money was in essence going to be used. If you do not have the money, you cannot be able to do the work around the destination of where we're trying to go. It's the most critical and most important. The traveling is beautiful, but again, we've already done put in situations where we had listening posts. That's all truth-telling is by itself. It's listening posts. If you want for us to be able to move forward, we have to figure out how to get the $250,000. I would tell you, in my opinion, you don't get the $250,000, then the project's dead. Because then it's requiring us to put our time, our talent, and you all have even talked about 2 meetings, or the last meeting, raising money, which is our treasure, to get stuff done. So I would just keep it simple and just simply say, what is it that we need to do, in essence, to be able to get the funding to complete the rest of the work? If we can come to agreement there, at least you and I, then I think that we can be at least on the same page as far as having the resources to be able to solve the problem. If we can't, to me, all of these organizations have already been here. They've been here forever. If they wanted to solve the problem, they could have solved the problem anytime they want. Most of them don't even realize there is a problem. And some of them just don't care.
And the only thing I'm afraid of is the risk we are taking. I remember before I became a commissioner, the long history of approving the budget that the commission was trying to propose. That took almost a year or more, I can't remember, because there were issues about itemization. So if you know very well, and somebody can tell me, promise me, or guarantees probably a wrong one, that if the commission just votes this, the city is just going to say, okay, that's good. If you can really, really convince me that, if you can persuade me about that, then I'm really in with you. Yeah, I don't want to be. I know the story of Lucy. That story I don't know very well from a different culture. Yeah, yes, I've not picked that, even though I've been here for many years. But I've not picked that. I'll try to read on that. But if I can be persuaded that the risk we are taking is not that high. That if we vote, then it's just going to happen based on the history we have had and based on. We have commissioner, we have council member here, and Redmond here. You can probably help me with that. The chances, just the risk we are taking.
You wanted to ask?
Yeah, if they can help us with that.
I think I don't know. I think we have a little bit more. I have one thing to say. I just want to say one thing. I hear both of you. I'm leaning towards Commissioner Simmons right now because I don't know about anyone else, but I'm tired. And I don't know how we can do any of the stuff we've talked about without an assistant. And that's part of the money that we're talking about. I think all the stuff we talked about doing is possible, but we need the dollars to move forward. So.
And I was going to follow up on that. I mean, Annie came up and reminded us that early on there was a specification for the position that we're thinking about right now seriously. So my thought would be that if we're going to go to the city council, it's like, look, you know what we've done. This is what we want to do. To move forward, we need something. The consultants that you agreed to hire suggested this is an important thing. We can tweak the job description to the extent that we'd like to and say, we want this to happen, and we want to have money in order to bring people forward, experts in the field, to educate us on these issues. And we don't have to give them a penny by penny description of how the money would be spent. But we can say, this is going to be a chunk, this is a necessary chunk, and we need some flexibility. our guesstimate is it's going to cost this much.
I'm all for finding other solutions. Maybe, I don't know, Redmond and Stephanie, maybe there's an intern option. Maybe there's the other option that you talked about, but we need personnel to help us make this happen. We had a lot of help with logistics behind the scenes with our local partners. Unless we're all prepared to fill in those shoes alongside with what the city is able to provide for us, it's not going to work the way that we're thinking in 4 months' time. I say this as a event planner and someone who's very adept at making things happen in this community. So that's my professional opinion.
Well, I would like the opportunity to advise the city manager on this discussion and see if there is some options that maybe staff can present the commission with by its next meeting.
That's very nice. We submitted the budget to them in January. They sat on it. We said that we were going to go to them. This is to come to, I'm sorry, I was getting ready to say something. I'm Christian, so I was going to say, for me, it would be a come to Jesus conversation. That's what it would be to me. What we should do is outline to them what the plan is, what the resources we need, in essence, to be able to complete the plan, and have them buy into the whole plan.
Yeah.
We don't have to give them the details, but they will then say, yes, not only will we give you the money, but we support the plan and the timeline that you put in place. So we can talk about our timeline, right? And we can come to make sure, because I think, again, Commissioner Amos brings up a point. He's talking about how do you manage risk, right? And risk management is important. We come up to something that we agree with, and then we we give it to them, and then they bless us or they don't. But at least we're real and we understand where they are and they understand where we're at.
And back to your point, you're worried about how do we make sure we're getting into the community, right? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, not really that
Okay.
way. That is not really. We are working on the budget, the 250. That's
Yes.
we want to get it very quickly, but I'm worried about being delayed.
Being delayed.
Because we just told them, give us 250,000.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think it works like that. I'll go, and I think I agree with the Commissioner for having said that just a general itemization, not really detailed because we don't have the details as such, but just something to help so that they can read something and say, well, you need 50,000 for this housing area. And what is that 50,000 going to go for? And this, up to the point where we are about 250,000 that Commissioner suggests. And that's really what I wanted. I think we're going so round. It's not a complex thing. Yeah. The other details, so now we are going to do that, whether it is one presentation, consultants there. I think those details will work ourselves based on what we think is efficient. Yeah. So I would just propose that we if we want to vote, we can vote. We are supposed to be voting sometimes. What we tend to agree on whether to itemize a few things that we need for the whole plan for the 250, so that something that makes it quicker to get the 250. And then we see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, with respect to quicker, I want to bring this issue up again. I don't know if there's any way to solve it, but if we meet every 2 weeks, it never gets done. I mean, we have to figure out some way to work offline on some of these pieces. So I just suggest that if it's someone is going to work to draft, the job description, someone is going to do a little bit of work on how much would it really cost to bring in the speakers that we would want, the number of times we'd want them, just really rough, but just so that at the next meeting, we can each point to each other and say, okay, what did you were going to do this, and you were going to do this, and we can be ready for that next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. We should delegate. I wanted to real quick ask Councilwoman Burgess if you have any advice on how we approach this topic with City Council.
I can't speak for my colleagues, of course. I can speak for myself and my experience on council. I do think that scoping a position for someone who is dedicated to assist you in your work now that you have the template, now that you have the vehicle, to me, sounds like a very reasonable step that would be relatively easy to articulate and could be pulled together quickly. I think if it were a part-time position that was being added, like that wouldn't have to go through an RFP. I think it depends on the position, maybe if it goes to council even. Not sure, but I think that's something that feels like something everyone could get their hands around pretty easily and quickly. And then the question of having the resources available for the work that needs to be done when you have that support, I think is a different question. I was on the council for the entirety of the tenure of the commission, and I have some hesitation as to, it's a different council now, but I have some hesitation as to the council's capacity or willingness to approve a sum of that size without a real articulated kind of what it would be spent on. And I think you all have seen that and know that history as well, but I do carry that concern.
Thank you. Commissioner Merritt or Johnson, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Love your opinions.
I'm thinking about that right now.
Okay, so one, we're thinking of a personnel, staff, whatever, dedicated person. Then there's the portion of okay, so if we get this person approved, that this person's gonna be the one that's gonna coordinate contacting whoever entities to come.
I visualize a
talk.
project manager, event logistics person. I also envision a second person that is a writer, because those seem like two different jobs, but we can negotiate that.
The writer portion, though, doesn't have to be right now. That writer person can come in a month in or a little bit later, correct? Because stuff has to happen first before we can start writing it up.
I mean, I don't know, a writer could take our history and write a lot already. I feel like they could start writing right now. They could start writing yesterday.
We already have stuff that's sort of in writing already.
It would be great to have someone that could digest this for us and take from this and everything else and put it together.
Right, but if you have somebody who is a dedicated writer, I mean, and that's all that they're going to be doing, they can come in in July.
Oh, that's, okay, July.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
sure.
but we need the staff person, dedicated person to work first. The writing portion can be picked up later. I remember in college doing the all-nighters and that kind of, the writing person can come in July to start that, whatever. But we're still talking about, so if we're thinking the month of June to be a month where we're going to be diving into, it sounds like housing is the one that we really should be, talking about, one of the topics. I'm just thinking about, again, the type of money that we're talking about, what we need for things to happen in June. So we're talking about bringing experts in to talk, correct? Is that one of the things we're talking about? Which one thing we said could happen at one of our meetings, which is something that, so it doesn't involve necessarily somebody flying to be here, whatever else, they can be Zoomed, or if they're local, which we should tap into those people, making sure that they can be here at those dates that are already on the calendar. We already know what dates those are. I'm just still trying to figure out what parts of activities that we need to have to happen to think about how much money we're talking about. So I said personnel is the first one. That's a big chunk, relatively big chunk.
anything related to documentary/truth-telling, anything for childcare, for any community events, plus community event expenses that we may or may not do.
So again, we're talking about, we're talking about the truth-telling, listing posts, events, whatever else. I know one thing we did talk about, going to places, like to churches, go where they're already having their own events, and we go in there. So again, that's a scheduling thing that a person who we have as personnel would be in charge of scheduling that.
I mean, this staff member could also help coordinate if we wanted volunteers or other people that wanted to be in, like, they could go and reach out to specific people, help us connect to them, that type of thing, daily.
So that we're talking about, that's the time part that we're buying into. I would think having one or two commissioners being at least a point of contact to help coordinate, work with that person, which would be something that's happening outside of our normal meetings. We have to have some kind of work happening there. So people so have a commissioner or commissioners say, yes, I can be part of that task group for that.
I mean, this
Right.
would be our point of contact. This person could travel, if we are all meeting in separate groups outside of this person could be the one person that can travel each one and fill us in without us having to wait for these meetings.
Exactly. What other kind of activities or some that I'm missing that we need to think about the money dedicated for?
Well, I think there was also, if we're going to get domain experts to come in, there's going to be some money for that, to talk to us in these different areas, so.
And also, again, and we presented it
In January?
in November.
Or was it, or whatever it was?
In
okay.
November, we presented projects,
Okay.
that were up to around $150,000. So my thought is that we still work on projects that are community-solving problems. So I would have that. So,
So there's, of the 250,000, there's a portion of it is the community project that we already talked about, whatever else.
yeah, I think it's whatever the commission decides. But this is, let me throw this out. When we did the presentation, right, the way we did the presentation, we put it together, we had discussions among several of us. The presentation was sent out to everybody, and then people have the ability to provide feedback. Why don't we do this something that's very similar to that as far as to come up with what the master plan is? I would volunteer to put a plan together, send it out to everyone to review it, and then we can work with the chair to make changes or adjustments that in essence needs to be made. So then we can then agree that there is this plan. And the reason you want that plan is that you want to be able to present that plan to the commission, to the city council, to say, this is what our plan is for this period of time. And we can then talk about how we want the money split up. And I'll split up the money, and we can make adjustments and changes to how we want the money split. Right? Specific enough so they understand what we're trying to do with it, but not so specific that it ties us into any given one project.
Correct.
Right? We don't have to have our meetings and do it in June, August, and July and August and September. If we wanted to, we could say we're going to meet on we're going to meet on Thursdays all of August. We're going to do all of the work in advance for the next 2 months, get all of our stuff together. We can even say in some cases that we're going to go and videotape questions or stuff for these people so that then we can send so everyone can see it, right? Everyone can see the response. They don't have to come here and they can see the response. And then we can make a determination if there's any additional people or we want them to come back because it's something that we want to have explained. So that's what that's what I'm offering. I'd be more than willing to put something together for the team to then make changes and adjustments to, for the purpose of using it to share with the city council.
I think a visual would be nice to do, to look at that.
So you're saying that if you have time, you'd be able to make it like in the next week, and then we can look at it before our next meeting? Because I don't know when we're scheduled to.
The 16th is our next meeting.
So next
Are we on?
Tuesday is the first city council meeting, right?
Yeah.
And then I think is it the third Tuesday, right? So my assumption is that you're going to want to present it at the third city council meeting.
Yes, and I was actually wondering if we're on that agenda, if it's been requested for us to be on that one. May 6th?
Probably not.
The 3rd?
The third for city council?
Or the 3rd, the 16th, or whatever date it is.
16th is our next meeting.
Okay, not this coming city council meeting, but the one after.
So the one after hasn't been, the agenda has not been prepared.
Okay, so when do we have to ask?
So if you want to be on that one, you don't have to be based on the contract. So this would be a new meeting for them. So the city council is not expecting to have another meeting with the TRC unless the TRC wants to. Obviously, that would be made possible. So there's no expectation that the TRC is going to be coming back immediately or whatever.
But there is a meeting because we have to get them to say yes or no to the money that we requested 4 months ago.
That would be a whole separate thing, right? I don't know if you were talking about the contracts, because once the final report, it goes to the council.
Right.
The
We're talking about the
We're talking about the money.
So the money, how you want to go about that request, you can get on the agenda. It will have to be, the earliest will have to be the one after next, which is
The 21st.
16th.
Right, so that's what we're
21st.
asking, if you would put us on that agenda.
Oh, I can certainly let the city manager know you like to be on that agenda, yes.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yes, I'm okay with you doing that. I'm happy that you're volunteering. Thank you very much. And I do have some ideas, so I'll just send them your way, and you can incorporate them however makes sense.
Yeah, you can send them my way, or you can wait till I send them your way and then make adjustments and changes. I'm
Okay.
totally fine with either way. My goal, just like with a presentation, is just to get it started and then allow the input to happen as it normally does. But it would allow us to be able to communicate with each other without having to have a meeting. And it would allow us to get ready for, we're going to be in a unique situation this month that our meeting, if we choose to have a meeting on the third Thursday, is before the third Tuesday meeting for the city council.
Yes. So I think that's a good plan, but we should still discuss, so we make sure we're all on the same page. I think we've thrown some ideas out there. I think we've all agreed to having an expert come. Maybe that's one every month or for 4 months. It's kind of, if we decide to do those for other areas. I would suggest maybe we would focus on, maybe select 1 or 2 more of the topics, and maybe keep the law enforcement one, because I think there's still areas, or, I don't know. I think we should just really discuss if it's too much to bite off at one time.
I think since there's still more that we need to do with the police one, especially if we're talking about some reconciliation, some policy changes, how the police, how they work, and try to figure out a solution. There's still work that needs to be done there, but I do think the housing one would be a good second one for us to be working on, and knowing that the other things are, if the time fits, or we also was going to say, this is an example of what still needs to be done after December.
I kind of like the idea of having opportunities to have multiple experts come and not having to do it on just one date, or if something happens, we can't all meet or something. So it just gives us a little bit more leeway, and we can alternate. So we're not feeling so.
The way I like to put things together is I don't like to block us in about the specific day.
Yeah.
Nor do I want to make a commitment to the city council about a specific day we're going to do stuff.
Yeah.
What I just want to make a commitment is that we're going to do stuff. and we're going to plan it accordingly based on people's schedules to make sure that it best fits our schedule. So whether we chose to do it one a month, or we said we're going to do it all in August and do all the prep work in advance, we want the freedom and flexibility to do that. We just want them to know we have a master plan, and this is an opportunity for them to support it or for them to kill it. And my feeling, I'm going to tell them this, because I remember having a conversation with the Cedar Rapids police chief, and we were talking about what was happening in Missouri. And I was telling them, I said, look, man, if you have to understand this is a bigger issue than just what's happening, in Missouri. And if you don't get to resolve this issue, if you don't figure out how to fix this, it's going to happen here. And what happened? The exact same thing that happened in Cedar Rapids. And that's what I'm going to tell ultimately the city council is the same thing. People have expressed that there's a problem. They're looking for solutions. You all gave it to us to solve, which in many cases was just mean-spirited. But let's just say that the part of it that they really was hoping for us to solve it, then you have to, when you do anything around innovation, you have to understand that things are going to happen. So you can kill it. City council, you have every right. This is your business. You can figure out it's money, you can figure out you want to do something different. But this is going to come up again, and it's not going to be as nice this next time. Because then no one will believe in you as an institution to be able to solve their problems. So you have to remember, you're not really dealing with us as a quote-unquote commission. You're dealing with us as the community. We're the community. We came in to help you. You don't want to help us solve our problems, then that's fine, but that's on you. And that's, to me, the thing that we have to really get them to understand and be accepting of whatever decision that they want. If they believe that this was just something that happened in the past, if they believe that, if that's true, then I'm like, okay, then it's on you. But when it comes up again, and it won't be as nice, because people are shifting to the point of, you start doing stuff that is not in my best interest. I'm going to start doing stuff that's not in your best interest. And that's where they have to understand that the fire is still burning. Just because nothing specifically has happened today doesn't mean that there's not a problem. And you can just see that, again, a whole issue that's happening in the institutions as of right now, whether it's in Columbia or UCLA. People are saying there's a problem, but they've always said there's a problem. They're just not dealing with it anymore. So I'm just saying, I feel good if I think that they held on to it because they wanted to see a wait and see to see what we're going to do. I think if we all come up with an agreement with a plan, we present a plan, we tell them what we want to do, then they have to be in a situation.
Yes or no?
Of yes and no. I mean, we know, and it's either my words. We know Laura, we know she loves us. Right? And she loves the work that we're doing. We know that, right? But we also know that she's not the only one that's on that commission. But I was listening to when you all were doing the presentation. And some of the questions was that they clearly don't understand what we're doing. So I just want to present. And then we have to make a decision based on all of the information that we have.
I have just a quick suggestion about the areas of interest. What about if we just prioritize them? So we just say social justice, we're definitely doing that. We've got work with the police, we're going to keep that. Then we say affordable housing is second, economic development third, education fourth. And if we're successful as we're moving through, we will pick up that other one. But that can be part of the plan, right? It means we don't have to commit to all four. We don't have to just commit to two. We can say this is how we prioritized it.
I think that's a good idea. I think what I was thinking was two different things. Like you're thinking about I can't speak right now, presenting to City Council, and I'm thinking both. I'm thinking about having our plan, which is very detailed, and presenting. But you're saying we need to share our vision.
To share, this is what we want. We have, 7 months left? Mm-hmm. Here's the 7 months, and this is how we want to spend our 7 months. This is what we need, in essence, to be able to spend it so that we can get stuff done. personally, I don't even think we need to have 2 meetings every month. I don't think we need to even do that. I do think that the meetings that we have, they have to be extremely impactful. They have to be like, oh, wow, I got to think about this, right? I need to go home and I need to think about what just happened to us, right? What information we got. I do think that, but I think that we owe it to them to say, this is what we want to do, and they owe it to us to tell us whether they want to support us or not.
Okay.
So, Chair, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. You are talking of 2 issues here. The presentation about the budget, request for the money, and also talking about report on what we have done and our plans. These are 2 things we have to be very clear. Do you want this on one day with the meeting, or you want this separate? Yeah? We have to be very clear about this.
So I was talking about the presentation and what we're doing moving forward. We've already given them our report of what's happened. That's what we did a couple weeks ago. But I was thinking about our plan, like detailed, what are we doing June, July, August, September through the end of the year, versus what we're going to present, how specific we're going to be at the presentation to the city council. I think that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I'm still confused. We are presenting a plan. You remember you promised the city council that you were going to give them some details on what we've done and a few other things, and a plan on the next course. Yeah. So those
So
are So are you still thinking of
Are
doing
we
something
so-
about it?
We, not me, but I think that's what we're discussing right now. How detailed do we need to be when presenting to the city council? So if you have an opinion that's different, please share it.
I think the opinion I have, we promised, the commission promised the council that we'll give them a detailed kind of performance appraisal on what we've done. I know that is part of it is
A performance appraisal or a plan of what we'll do moving forward? Because I don't agree that we promised that we'd give them a performance appraisal, because we already did that last month. And we said that we were going to come back and share with them what we want to do moving forward so we can ask for more money.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what the part 3 and part 4 is talking about,
Come back
what we're
and
doing with the remainder of our time.
Okay, so we are just going for one thing, which is the plan only, and with the budget.
yes, plan in the budget, because we already talked about the past. We've already fulfilled that.
Because we need the money, the budget, to be able to do what we want to do for the next
7 months.
months. So it's,
But it was your understanding, Commissioner Kiche, that we're going to talk more about what we did?
Yes, that is how I got it, and I might have been wrong, because you see, we faced a lot of dilemma in terms of questions, because we were not even telling them how many meetings we have had. We could just say 100 people, and you did your best as our leaders at that moment, because we had just a few days to do that. And I thought we followed Commissioner Chad's strategy. Do not give them too much to chew, because we could have been in trouble. And we had some recommendations from a draft report from the facilitators that gave us a lot of data on the number of meetings we have had, the accomplishments. I think the city sometimes care about data to justify things. The data was in here, but we didn't have time to look at them in a way. For example, on March 20, all the things that we did, they were in here. I thought that those are the things probably in our next round with them, we could include that. Then we finalized with a request for the budget, for the money with the plan.
I mean, I don't see why we couldn't incorporate some of those pieces to justify why we need to move forward. But they also received the final report, which has all of that information this week. So they should have all that information.
City council hasn't.
They haven't received
not
it
the
yet?
city council, no. The process is that the commission needs to review and have whatever feedback, and then it goes to the
Oh,
city council.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, I don't think they have that, and if they The report we got from them still does not even have their own data that they gave us preliminary. I think they forgot somewhere, and some of the things that we talked about is kind of missing. And there's something you said we will talk
talking about
about
here?
Yes,
Oh,
that we'll
okay.
talk about in the next meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm getting out of line a little bit,
No, you're
but
fine.
yeah, but so the issue, one of the issue I'm having is whether we are gonna give them a detailed report on what we've done but I'm being convinced, and I'll trust that I'm the one who didn't hear that properly.
I mean, I think we can do both. We can push and share our vision as passionately as Commissioner Simmons was, and talk about everything that we've done in more detail with data and numbers, but really push the vision of why we need to do this and why we need to move forward and what we need from the city to move forward to complete the mission that they gave us. So I don't think you're wrong in that interpretation. I don't know if it's definitely not my plan at this point. I think our plan to do like a slideshow presentation of everything we did in the last like four months, because we already did that. But
This just needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
And then we can give them a little bit more information, though.
So if I could offer, if I'm following the discussion, if on the next the city council meeting after next, there's a presentation about your future steps or future path, whatever that looks like. That could be a presentation. It probably will not be a vote or an action item that is a funding request at that particular point.
Why not? Why
No, why not?
Well, because it takes, there's a protocol to get on the agenda. It takes 2 city council members typically to get on that agenda, and that is exactly why it didn't move before. So they have what they call an information packet that the city council gets, which shows your minutes and any requests. So that request that you had with the 250 was presented, but the council didn't pick it up. So there's a process.
Are you telling us that we need 2 city council people to support it being brought up?
Support it to be, yes. That's
And
correct.
then what
But
is
you don't need that to be a presentation. So you can get on, the city manager can get you on as a presentation, but it won't be an action item where the council will actually be taking a vote.
And when is it that the city must know that they have 2 people that want it to be brought up? When is it that we need to make a request that at least 2 city council members would bring up the issue of the funding so that it can be decided on the same day that we do the presentation? How soon do they have to let us know?
So every Thursday, there's an information packet that goes out. The city council will see this discussion, and they'll see if you want a request to be made that can be in a memo or whatever, they'll see that. It's up to them if they want to put that on the agenda.
No, I totally
So every
understand.
opportunity, every week, they'll see it, they'll have an opportunity to say, hey, we want this on the next agenda.
No, I understand that so I think what I'm hearing you say to us is that every Thursday, they will get a packet.
Right.
When is it that they have to then request that it is on the agenda for the vote?
I think that timeline depends, but I would say that the city clerk likes to have that information in if it's going to be on the next city council meeting. And again, it depends on when that next city council meeting is. So whenever that rotation is coming up and that memo and has that interest and that has been expressed to the city manager and that's been expressed to the city clerk and that gets on the agenda, right? So that happens usually the Friday before the city council meeting.
You understand, when you hear yourself, you understand how difficult this is.
Well, and you're asking hypotheticals that are,
No, it's not a hypothetical. It was a real question.
Well, it's a question that we already went through the process once, right?
No.
You already had made a vote from the commission for the 250.
No.
And there was a memo that was accompanied, right?
Yes, but
And that went
But
to the city council.
Yeah, but the point that I'm trying to make is that what you're saying, and again, I could ask the city council, I don't want to put her in this situation, but what you're asking, what you're telling us is that a couple of city council members have to say that it's going to be up for discussion. So let me just be real with you. Then that means that we need to have conversations with city council members to get them to vote and say that they want, when we give them this presentation, that they vote. And my question to you is that when is it that they have to tell someone to make sure that it is on the agenda for there to be a vote?
Because next Thursday, the 9th, is the next information
Right.
packet day. Okay,
Right.
so on the 9th, they're going to see this and whatever,
Right.
knowing what we're going to request. So on the 9th, potentially 2 council members can say, we want to have this on the next available meeting, which technically that Friday, that information can be given to, is it the city clerk, whatever else, to be on.
So it is the 9th.
that-
So it
that-
would be the Thursday. They have to say.
Because the 9th is the next information packet meeting. You said they meet every
Yeah,
Thursday,
you're
so that's.
right.
So the 9th, so.
Right. And that's all based on if you have the support to make that request.
No. You said the support has to be at least 2.
That is correct. That's the protocol.
If 2 people, regardless if everyone doesn't want it, but if 2 people say yes, then it has to be voted on. Would that be
Then
accurate?
it has to be on the agenda.
It has
So,
to be on
so,
the
Yeah,
agenda.
at
so the
the
next.
agenda.
So the next agenda available is the 21st, May 21st. That would be the next
I don't have a calendar in front of
meeting.
me, so the dates are,
I got
I'm
you.
just giving you the process.
You know what I'm saying,
I got
but that would be the next meeting. Because the next meeting after that information packet meeting.
And it's always the Thursday before the meeting happens, right?
Every Thursday comes out, even the Thursday of the off week.
Right,
Oh,
which
so we have
technically.
2 shots at it.
So every
No.
Thursday.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, we have 2 Thursdays in the sense for the information thing, but the 9th is at the very next information packet meeting date. But the next council meeting after that isn't going to be until the 21st, which is a week and a half.
There's 2
So-
Thursdays.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, so there's 2 Thursdays. that-
Yeah, there's 2 Thursdays, but I'm talking about if they decide, best case scenario, that at the next information meeting on Thursday the 9th, that they say, there's 2 council members that say, yes, we want to put this on the agenda, that next meeting isn't until May 21st.
Right.
So, Councilmember Burgess, can you tell us, you keep putting that up.
So based on the rules that the council has adopted, it takes at least 3 councilors to put something on the agenda or the mayor. So on Wednesdays, before the packet is assembled, the mayor pro tem, and the city manager meet to decide what's on the agenda. So I think it answered your question. It could be any time, but whoever said we should be having conversations with counselors, 100%. Getting buy-in before anything would come before us, or not buy-in, getting an understanding, as Commissioner Simmons said, the meeting where you made the presentation, some of those questions from my colleagues did suggest that they haven't been tracking very closely what's been happening with the commission. So I think any way to provide them with information in a one-on-one setting so we can ask questions and, really understand what's happening is way more effective than trying to force something to a vote, in my opinion, personally, as one counselor.
Thank you. I'm struggling a little bit because until that information was given to us, we might have gone to this meeting thinking that we would be able to have a vote, but
see
without that knowledge.
See the politics of it all?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I need more help in understanding things. When we don't know things and we're talking about things, it'd be really appreciated if we're given that information right away, because we've been. This is the purpose of us going to the meeting, is to get a vote. So it would be a waste of our time to go to this meeting without getting that vote.
So, again, Laura's one of my favorites. I just like her. I just love her spirit. And she's absolutely right. Politically, you don't ask something for someone until you're going to get the yes that you want. You don't ask for the vote until you make sure you got the vote. What technically we should do is we should go and we should talk to, and testing 1, 2, 3, we should talk to every city council person and say, this is what we need and this is why we need it. Now, we should do that. That's what we should do. And we should convince them that they should say yes. Now, that
But
is
we-
politics.
But we first need to be in agreement with ourselves. What are we going to the council members and saying?
Right.
So make sure we have our message.
And make sure we have our
cohesive.
message together. But that's the
Exactly.
politics of it. But if you speak of it without the politics, I just want them to make a decision. I don't mind that they make a decision of no. I think that they're going to pay for it. I think they're going to pay for it seriously. But what they're doing is they're making us pay for it. They're making us go to meetings every 2 weeks. For us to have meetings and not have the resources, now we're here. But we knew we were going to be here. That's why we asked for the resources early. And they knew we were going to be here, and that's why they didn't give us the resources. I believe that it is their nature, okay? Dogs bite. It's their nature. I have no problem with that. It is their nature to do it from a political perspective. Because they can always say, we're doing this because of the city, it is community money, and we're trying to be fiscally responsible. I don't doubt that. I think we should go and talk to them if you want to play the politics of it, and everyone should have conversations with these folks. And I think we should get our way to yes. But I personally feel, even if you get your way to no, they're telling us who they are. And I'm not wasting my time with people who aren't as committed to us trying to help them solve a problem than they are. It's their problem. It's not my problem. It's their problem. And they agreed to it being their problem when they ran for office. So that's what my suggestion is. If we want to play the politics, we should just talk to each one.
So that makes sense. I was thinking that before while you were talking about it.
Before I jumped in.
No. I wasn't saying it like that.
I know you weren't, but that's okay.
But I guess my question is, and not everyone has to do this, but who is interested in having conversations? Because then we can decide to divide and conquer. I think pairs, or if anyone's comfortable doing one-on-one, works out. But not everyone has to have conversations. I think it's good for the city council to hear from all of us. I don't think all of them have, so that could be a good experience. In different perspectives. I do agree, Lawrence, that we need to be on the same page, but I think we have our vision. And it almost feels like all the things we want to do, we can't move forward until we have these conversations to see if it's even possible. That's kind of what I'm gathering right now.
Yeah,
But
but still, I want it on what we're talking about.
Yeah,
What you're going to get together.
Mm-hmm.
I want that, because that we're going to need to have when we sit down with the council members. Second thing I want to say is, I'm going to be out of the country the second half of this month.
Yeah.
So there's very limited time that I have. I will try to do as much as I can. And also our next meeting is my birthday, which I probably am not going to be here for. So just want to get that out there. But other times of the week, I will be available if I need to meet up with a council member, with somebody. I can coordinate my schedule that way, just so I get that out there. Okay.
Are we able to get them in a Zoom meeting and kind of talk to them as a group or anything to make it easier?
All of us? Oh, it can't be
be all of
quorum.
us.
Not all of us, but
I mean, I think this is probably in-person meetings, but we can always, and we can talk to each of them multiple times. I mean, it doesn't, Zoom and in person, I can, annoy the crap out of them. So,
something that's just convenient, easy, and
I mean, I was going to say,
that would make it easier for us to speak with them fast.
I mean, I've spoken with, obviously Laura, but I've spoken with Josh, I've spoken with Mizir, I've spoken with the mayor on other things in the past. I'm perfectly willing to talk to those three and put in a phone call, see if they'll return the phone call to talk to them.
yeah, I think as we're going through what our next steps are, our first step is these two items. If you, Commissioner Simmons, can still create the plan that you were talking about, and then we need to schedule like meetings. I will reach out to the people on city council that I know personally. If anyone else has connections, might be looking at you, that they feel are stronger, and then we can just, work it out from there. We can look at Zoom options as well, and in person. I mean, we have 2 weeks. So if we get delayed, then we get delayed, and it's not our fault that we're getting delayed. We're playing politics. So
I'll try to reach out to the mayor and speak with him.
Hmm? You keep smiling at me. I don't know what you're saying.
You're doing a wonderful job. That's what I'm smiling.
I've always.
I know you're feeling uncomfortable, but I think you are. So I
don't know what it means.
I smile. I don't say it.
I don't want. I mean, I think if we have more to talk about, we can. I feel like I don't want to dismiss what Commissioner Kiche was saying. I think everything you were talking about was very valuable. So we'll definitely move forward on that. On making sure that when we're making that presentation, we're giving the background information that we missed the last time, and have a good enough plan moving forward. I do want to give you, Commissioner Johnson, an opportunity to speak more, since if you want to.
Right now, like I said, I'm taking things in. So
Okay.
I have some thoughts and ideas that are brewing, so we'll get there. I have some ideas.
Is there more that we need to talk about in this, or do we kind of have some action plans?
So what my goal is to develop a template and then to send it out for people to then examine and have conversations about the template or make adjustments or changes that you believe that should happen. I'm trying to keep it vague enough for the communication to the city council so that we're not blocked into doing something. We said we were going to do it on Wednesday. We didn't do it on Wednesday. We're out of line with our program, so nothing else we say will be believable. That would be an example. I don't want them to be able to say something of that nature. So that's the goal, is to help them understand what the framework is and the general timeline of when it's going to happen. So don't take into consideration that I'm saying if I say something is going to happen this summer, it doesn't mean that I'm saying it's going to be in June. It could be in August. It could be in July. We have the flexibility to choose the time. And then we can get more specific in kind of the overall plan. But I'll put something together to address our issue, and then you all can make modifications to it, and you will have it by Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask that question. And will you send it to Stephanie so she can send it to all of us? Because that's what you have to do for quorum.
Yes, so first what I do is I send it to my chair
Yes,
and my
but
vice chair. And then after they give me permission, then I support it being sent out.
speed up the process. Just, I'm okay with you sending it
Just
to
go
everyone.
rogue and just go
Yeah.
directly.
Well,
Give me permission
it's
to go
not
rogue.
but just send it to all of us so that we
Gotcha.
can,
Okay.
speed it up just a little bit.
Then I'll do that.
Thank you.
And that would mean that we would then we will still have to, if I'm not mistaken, we would have to send that presentation to them.
The Thursday before, right? Or is it the Monday before?
We're talking, I guess I'm using the 21st date. Yeah, so it'd be the Friday before that Tuesday meeting.
Which
So
means
we
they'll
would
have
have our
two.
meeting, and then after our meeting, then we could then submit it.
Right. So if you're able to give it to us next Tuesday, and I'll just bring up actual dates real quick. Next Tuesday is the 7th. If people are able to give feedback by the 13th, which is that following Monday, having conversations in between with each other, I'll try to make it a point to reach out to people, probably in groups.
Then we finalize on the 16th,
Then we can, yes, then we'll finalize on the 16th.
and then we submit on the 17th,
But like
and present on the
21st.
First.
That is the plan. And then in the meantime, we're working on communicating and sharing our vision with City Council. And we can talk offline a little bit more individually if people have thoughts on what that means moving forward, I think.
Just a question.
Yes.
Commissioner Stasinari, proposed that we make a decision on prioritizing this because of the problem of time. And we didn't, I believe we did not reach an agreement on that. So I'm wondering if we can complete that process to help Commissioner Chad in his template so that if he doesn't have to worry about any of these items that we don't want right here. Can we make that today?
Yeah, if, I was hearing that a lot of housing seems to be the next one that people are thinking. If that is not true for you, speak now. Do you think that something should be more of a priority than housing?
I believe housing would be the next one.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking of small business.
So I think the priorities are the area of interest, not the community projects.
Well, yeah, I'm just, okay.
No, I think he's talking about, he's talking about,
Oh,
we
am
were
I-
talking about economic development.
Economic
Yeah,
development.
And that's what he's saying, small business.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would, I would start with housing, small business, and then education, if we have to eliminate one.
I will say I'm partial to education, but I think we have a lot to work with, so.
Well, and the thing about with education, because of, as what was just notified in the notification this week, talking about how much their budget has been cut, there's going to be so much change going on that they probably need to figure out before we can even dive in too much. I think we can pay attention to what's going on in the news with them and what's going on, but I think our involvement probably will be a little bit later with the education, just because of, I don't even know what it's going to look like in a few months.
So priority is affordable housing, economic development, and education. Are we still doing public safety?
Yeah, I thought public safety was falling under like social justice.
Is that what social justice is? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
about.
Okay, I missed that part.
So I was thinking that because we've done a lot of work on that already, that's number one. We're going to continue with that. Then affordable housing, we think we have enough bandwidth, we can cover that. Maybe there's enough to go to economic development, but we'll find out to try to give more flexibility to the plan. We'll find that out as we go along. And if we're really cruising along and everything's great, then we would finally turn to do something with education.
Okay.
I'm actually also supposed to be meeting with the police chief, probably. We're trying to coordinate schedules, so within the next couple weeks. So that's also happening.
Great, so we have made our priorities, on the list. We got that. In the spirit of delegation, we did talk about what will everyone else do? We have our tasks of the plan, of reaching out to city council. If there's any other things, I know I'm just going to bring up what you sent me in an email, Commissioner Tassinari, about like a possible viewing of a movie or something, a documentary.
Right.
If there's those type of connections, or we talked previously about going to churches, those connections. I think it makes sense that we start building upon those and have like something to bring back to talk about at our next meeting. If you like reach out to those people, see what those connections can look like and how they can fit in the plan that Commissioner Simmons is going to be putting together, so that we're not coming back talking about, well, we should do this, but what do we need, but already know what we need to do to move forward in doing that. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Okay.
that makes good sense.
And we probably can do this, after the meeting, whatever else, but I want to make sure that we have identified who is talking to which council member, so that every one of them we know exactly who's contacting them, so that nobody's missed.
I don't know how to divide that right now.
No, I said we can do it afterward, not now.
Okay, after. Yeah, we'll make sure that's very clear. Are there any other action items for this agenda item, or does anyone else have any other thoughts or concerns that they'd like to voice right now?
I just want to make sure on May 21st, we're looking to have presentation, funding requests, and the final report submitted to council.
This final
it.
support.
That final report.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that back to my attention. Do we think that we have enough time to look through this report and discuss it by next meeting?
I think so.
Yes, it should be.
I do think we have enough time to look at it and to discuss it by next meeting and see whether we want to present it with a cover letter.
Okay.
I do think that. I like to just bring this clarity, though. When you talk about a funding request, the request has already been made. So we're not asking for a new funding request. That would be accurate.
Well, you want it on the agenda is essentially, right?
I'm not quite sure. Well, so my answer to your question is yes, but what I understood is we have to get 3 people to support it or the mayor to support it.
That's what, yes,
So as long as we do that, we don't have to write another request for money.
that's right.
Or would you think that it make sense for us to rescind the request?
No, unless you want to provide, I think there's been some discussion about providing some more detail. So you certainly can do that, but it's not like that request is dead. It's still out there. So it's not like you have to reproduce any more paperwork or what have you.
Is the request in every Thursday, it's in every Thursday memo since January?
No, it's not, it's not re-presented, but it's been presented and it's part of the record.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is just a request from the partners, and they might be having some information or data that will make our presentation be a little bit more convincing. You already did a good job, and on the draft report that you gave us, the previous one, which are very good. If there is additional one, we could help Chad with that, put that in together.
Well, I think some of the things in here are in here.
I'm not sure they're all in there. I think I went through this a little bit, spent some time on it. I didn't see that in there. You think these are?
Yeah, come up.
So I think you're accurate, Amos, that the information that I handed out that could have been the slideshow, that is not directly in the report.
In this one, yes.
Right.
That is a very important information.
And so would you like me to send you that electronically, that slideshow information?
I think send it to the commission chair or Chad.
Or through Stephanie
If you could send
to
it
all
to
of you?
Stephanie and then she can send it to all of us, please?
I'll do that.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Good, thanks. Good point that didn't get in.
Yeah, but this, I know that I recognize from, I guess, the fact-finding presentation.
Yes.
So that's in there.
Oh, yeah, the fact-finding aspects are there, but I don't want to talk about it right now because we'll discuss it next time. There are other things that we talked about in the commission that are not here. I don't think
I'll
we
send
can
that.
do that now.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns or requests for this agenda item before we move on to commissioner announcements? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, commissioner announcements. If anyone has anything, speak now. Okay, staff announcements.
I just wanted to make a clarification, and it wasn't wrong, but Commissioner Tassinari had asked a question about the budget and what was outstanding yet to be spent. And we, I think, said $80,000, which is in the ballpark, but I think what that included was the discretionary $20,000 that the commission had. Those dollars do come out of the Black Lives Matter Fund, but they do not come out of the not to exceed $400,000 that was allotted for the facilitators. So, and also to note that there's a couple of facilitators that have multiple months yet to be paid. So roughly there's about $100,000 for facilitation, and the $20,000, which the commission slightly went over by $200 whatever dollars, came out of the Black Lives Matter Fund, but not out of the facilitation for $100,000. That's all.
Thank you for the clarification. Stephanie, did you have any announcements? Thank you. I will motion for an adjournment.
I move.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.